Hello fellow undeads, I'm Rebirth. During your journey, many among you have encountered Rosaria, the voiceless goddess head of the Rosaria's Fingers Covenant. Her identity is hidden and goes well beyond the walls of her confinement. Still, with this video I provide you the tools to unravel the mysteries of this character. Rosaria can be found inside the walls of the Cathedral of Deep, pent up in a hidden location which can be reached only from the rafters of the building. Jumping down from here forces us to fight our way across the mangroves before we can enter through the sealed doors of her chamber. The room is filled left and right with crypts, while at the end of it we find the maternal figure of Rosaria, resting on her bed, gently caressing one of her mangroves. Many come before her to offer to the goddess pale tongues, trophies of the Red Orb invaders. Proof of a Red Orb invaders' victory over a host of embers. Claiming tongues as trophies was originally the practice of an infamous troop of invaders who offered them to the speechless goddess. This practice has two purposes. Sacred seal of Archdeacon Klimt, who served Rosaria, Mother of Rebirth. Rosaria's fingers collect tongues in her name. Some do it to be reborn, others do it to help comfort the voiceless goddess. She is the Mother of Rebirth. Authoring her pale tongues allows us to change our appearance and to be reborn, but there's a limit to the times we can be granted this gift. Gameplay wise we are allowed to perform this action up to 5 times, while with additional attempts we are told that we've reached the limit for this lifecycle. If the game would allow it, forcing Rosaria to further change our appearance would most likely result in us being reborn as mangrubs. Staff of the mangrubs who guard Rosaria's bedchamber. Their holy symbol is formed at the tip. Wielder's luck strengthens effects of sorceries. The mangrubs have clearly been reborn, but as what? The first impression I got while reaching this point was that Rosaria seems to have many connections to the fair lady of the first game. A speechless goddess surrounded by faithful deformed beings, there to bring some relief to the sorrow and pain of their mother. The fact that Kirk, Knight of Thorns, former Darkgrave and eventually Cow Servant, was reborn as Longfinger Kirk in Dark Souls 3 further extends the connections between the two covenants and their leaders. But it's actually possible to find the remains of Krellag's sister in the demon ruins under the smoldering lake, therefore limiting the parallelisms between the covenants to be a mere reference. We do know of 3 other members of Rosaria's Fingers though. One of them is Yellowfinger Hazel, daughter of the leader of the Legion's Acolytes and Xanthus Scholar. Sorcery which improves upon Theron Dart. Fires a more powerful Soul Dart, entrusted to the leader of the Legion's Acolytes, and apparently a sorcery of his daughter, Hazel, that was refined by a Crystal Sage. Her peak reads that it is the choice weapon of Yellowfinger Hazel, a thinger of Rosaria and Xanthus Scholar. It's both a weapon and sorcery staff, while the gold specs are remnants of lost sorceries. Hazel invades us twice, once at the Road of Sacrifices and once at Farron Keep, near the remains of what closely resembles Elizabeth of Ulasil. That's actually not just mere coincidence, as Hazel's crown tells us, crown made in imitation of a divine creature of Ulasil, land of ancient golden sorceries. Xanthus clothing is the mark of a researcher of lost sorceries, and the oversized crown is emblematic of their work. Such a curious pursuit is surely nothing to be ashamed of. The divine creature the crown imitates is most likely Elizabeth, Ulasil's sanctuary keeper. We know from the dialogue with the NPC Leonhard that Hazel strongly believed in camaraderie, probably because she was born between the ranks of the watchdogs of Farron.
Like Yellowfinger, you can choose to believe that all fingers share camaraderie, but do not force your romance upon the rest of us.
Offering some pale tongues to Rosaria triggers the appearance of a new mangrove, which drops Hazel's crown and pick upon death, therefore suggesting us her ultimate fate. Another important finger is Klimt, one of the 3 archdeacons of the Cathedral of Deep and founder of the Covenant. At some point he abandoned his faith in his position in the Way of White to serve Rosaria and protect her. A silver bident decorated by a holy symbol, formerly wielded by Saint Klimt. He discarded this weapon that draws upon one's faith on the day that he put his own faith behind him. We will later discuss why Klimt abandoned the Way of White for Rosaria, but it's worth noticing now that the spell the Mangrubs cast with their staff closely resembles the Saint Bident of Klimt, thus suggesting that also some of his clerics followed him in his conversion of faith. I actually like to believe that the peaceful grub which drops the red sign soap right before the entrance to Rosaria's chamber is Klimt himself, but feel free to disagree on this. The last finger of Rosaria we know of is the aforementioned ring finger Leonard, who invites us since the first hours of game to invade other players and to retrieve their pale tanks. His mask tells us a bit more about him. Silver Mask of Ring Finger Leonard. In his youth, Leonard suffered grave burns to the entire body. His face in particular, which he hid beneath his mask, was terribly scalded. He abstained from restoring these injuries even after becoming a Finger of Rosaria. Leonard seems to be one of those who serve Rosaria out of pure faith, not to gain benefits. His devotion to the goddess goes even deeper, as by progressing his quest line he'll eventually kill Rosaria. He will explain us his motivation upon invading him in Guinevere's chamber in Under London, using the black eye orb found on Rosaria's dead body.
Well, never expected to see you here. Couldn't resist her any longer in all her festering glory, and now you want to ravage her soul as well. No one will despoil her soul. Certainly no beast wrapped in human skin. What do you want with her soul? Isn't flesh enough for a sick beast?
He saw in us a threat, and therefore wanted to protect Rosaria, probably knowing that he could have revived her in any moment by simply returning her soul. The soul of Rosaria, Mother of Rebirth, stolen by Ringfinger Leonard. Return this to her extant corpse, and Mother Rosaria will spring back to life, as if nothing had ever happened. Her soul is important also for another reason. It's possible to transpose it to make Guinevere's bountiful sunlight miracle. It's at this point undeniable that Rosaria must have some connections to the Princess of Sunlight, either being her child or a maiden of hers. Her soul is unique in form and reddish, color of sunlight and of Guinevere, that lets me believe that Rosaria probably is one of her daughters. Finally, being her called a goddess further underlines the latter thesis. In fact, there's another reason that proves her divine origins, but for this we need first to further explore some of her lore. Still, if that should prove to be the case, this would explain why Klimt started serving her. If she really is one of the last survivors of Gwyn's family, then it would be obvious for me for a true Way of White cleric to serve her directly. She's a bit like the Messiah for the Jews. Some believe in Jesus becoming Christians, while others are still waiting for the revelation. Also, it's worth noticing that her name comes from the Rosary, the Catholic prayer beds devoted to the Virgin Mary, from whom was clearly drawn inspiration for Rosaria's character. By ranking up in her covenant, she gifted us the obscuring ring, which gives us some incredible insight. Hides the presence of the wearer when far away. It is said that Rosaria, the Mother of Rebirth, was robbed of her tongue by her firstborn, and has been waiting for their return ever since. It's very interesting that she possesses a ring that allows its user to conceal himself, suggesting that she was actually in hiding. This strongly reminds me of another woman, of which little is known, but who quietly disappeared at some point in time. Is it perhaps possible that Rosaria is the Queen of Lothric? I've already briefly touched this topic in another video while talking about the royal family of Lothric. Here I underlined the heavy similarities Rosaria has to the twin princes, as from the picture of trophy you get upon their defeat, it's possible to notice that Lorien once had long black and white hair, very similar to Rosaria's, while both share similar faces and expressions of pain. Furthermore, Prince Lothric possesses the ability to restore life into Lorien once we kill him, a skill similar to that of his potential mother. We also know that the Queen of Lothric was the maker of the Divine Blessing, an item unique to Guinevere and probably to her children. But we know from the first game that Guinevere was married to flame god Flann and not to Osiris, thus allowing only one possible explanation. Another clue hinting at the correlation between the Queen of Lothric and Rosaria is the fact that one of her mangrubs can be found under the cage containing the dead body of Gertrude, the queen's daughter. We said not too long ago that Rosaria was robbed of her tongue by her firstborn, and I had already theorized in another video that the queen probably fled from Lothric due to the twin princes' conversion of thought towards the fading of fire, thus opposite to Gwyn's legacy. Considering that the signed Biden sorcery the grubs cast with their staffs releases feathers upon impact, I tend to believe that the angelic vision of Gertrude was a product of Rosaria, a desperate final attempt to get back their control over the fate of the world and of the kingdom. This antipodal fronts inside the family might also explain why Lorien could have cut off his mother's tongue, though this is just my speculation. The last piece of hint I have is likely the most interesting one, regardless of it proving me right or wrong. Keeping in mind that Rosaria is a strong maternal figure, we'll now find out that the same goes for the Queen of Lothric. She left some gifts in the intended graves, so that these might one day help a chosen undead to link the fire. There is a grave in Lothric that sees no visitors, a dark place where ruthless warriors rest. The Queen of Lothric alone cared to wish the poor souls good fortune. Once a treasure brought before Lothric's queen, she had it enshrined in the cemetery of the intended graves, so that one day an unkindled might profit from its use. This item is placed upon the body of our character in the intended graves, suggesting in fact that when we create a character at the beginning of every game and we choose his burial gift, it's very likely that this action is explained lore-wise as a gift given us by the Queen of Lothric. The coins relate to the lucky side of human nature, the same way the man-grub stuff boosts its strength with luck. The young white branch allows to pacify the giant, but also to hide, the same way the obscuring ring does, and in a similar fashion to how Osod could have disappeared. Risking a further hypothesis in this direction, it might also be that the queen fled with him after his birth, suggesting that the unique grub on Rosaria's bed could be in fact Ocelot, the last-born child, deformed by the madness of Rosaria's experiments. And finally, the cracked red eye orb is a tool used by Rosaria's fingers to invade other worlds and hunt for pale tongues, and therefore directly associated to her. The proof for Rosaria being the Queen of Lothric and one of Guinevere's daughters are plenty, and they all let me think that this theory is quite plausible, even though I'm not so naive to believe that no errors may have been made on my side. But regardless, only time will tell. Until then, I hope that you, fellow Ashen One watching this video, might share your thoughts on the topic in the comments, leaving feedback to what you just saw, helping me to further improve the content of this channel and the joint exploration of the marvelous lore this masterpiece of a game delivered us so far.